Welcome to, okay, let's see, hold on. Cut that. Welcome back to the Agentics podcast, where we break down how modern leaders combine intelligence, technology, and commercial execution to scale faster in an AI-driven world. Today, I've got two heavy hitters joining me. David Ronn, veteran cybersecurity and GTM leader known for turning complex security problems into simple operational outcomes. Vic Friday, enterprise systems expert with a track record designing high-integrity IT and infrastructure solutions that actually empower the business. David, Vic, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I need to tell my mom that intro.
Yeah, right. I'll share it with you. I could share you the script. You could write feed it into ChatGPT and have it write a bio for you or something.
Right.
Great. So look, here we're going to connect leadership, security, a little bit about systems, and GTM in one conversation, exactly what we do here at Vault Intelligence for modern growth. So let's just jump right in. David, start us off. I know you've operated across security, operations, and GTM at a time when companies are rewriting how they're thinking about risk, right? What are some early lessons that shaped your leadership style?
Look, the most important thing is to listen. People like to hear themselves talk. And I'm guilty of that as anybody. But what I've learned over the years is you learn an awful lot by listening to somebody and not always thinking about what is the next thing I'm going to say, but what really is coming out of their mouth. What is their point? What are they trying to get across? How do you communicate in an effective fashion? And so much of business and growth entities is about listening to your customers, listening to the market, listening to your co-founders, listening to your employees, and not necessarily having a predetermined agenda. So I would say that is, if I'm going to name one thing that helps to drive excellence in my mind, is you've got to listen to people.
Yeah, I love it. So, reason why we have two ears and one mouth, right?
Right.
The old adage. So awesome. And Vic, your path is a bit different, right? But you intersect in some critical areas like architecture, infrastructure, a lot of system design. What was the moment you realized that technology works really only when the business understands it, right? Like to David's point, listening, getting it, and then how do you kind of like get it to a point where, they understand it? And then what was that moment where you realized that it only really works when they do understand it, right?
So my background, I think the pivotal learning for me was the fact that business users know their business much better than I do. Okay, so my background and what I'm talking about here is I'm an IT guy, right? And usually IT guys tell the business what they can and cannot do. What you have to do to be effective with our customers and with our users is understand that they know more about their business than we do. So when we engage them, we're really in a learning mode, trying to learn what their business actually does, because they'll tell you what it does. And most users don't have a really good opinion of IT types because basically they're preached at. They're told what they can and can't do. And so if you really are, as David mentioned, if you really are listening to the customers and the clients, you really have to make a mind shift and say, okay, your business much better than I. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you can and can't do. I want you to tell me what you need, and I'll tell you if I can deliver that to you or not.
Yeah, very, very consultative view, and absolutely, the listening helps in that regard, right? And Vic, a little bit about kind of some early day leadership principles that you've picked up that are still paying dividends in 2025.
Well, I think, you have to play the long game. You have to think about where you want to wind up and where you want your business to wind up. So you think about the long game and not get into a knee-jerk mode of just trying to react to the latest thing that's out or the latest buzzwords. You have to think about, okay, where are we headed with this? So really you have to take a step back and take a long game vision.
Yep. And then, just shifting gears a little bit in terms of AI and where we're at in the industry today with security and IT in particular. David, you've been hands-on with securing real environments. AI's blown up the attack surface, right, at the end of the day. And what's the biggest lie that companies tell themselves about security today in your experiences here?
That current systems work. The answer is they don't. Software can never be the answer to security, ever. Because software is just logic. Logic is just math. Math works for me. Math works for you. No matter what crazy algorithm or AI you come up with, the next person can reverse engineer it and you're toast. The so uh, and look, all you have to do is read the paper every single day, right? Showing my age. Read the internet every day. Nobody reads the paper anymore. But the a software is reactive. It is not proactive. And AI and or the software cybersecurity solutions, they can stop what is known. So that, they're tagging all the known malware, and if it's in their list, they can stop it. They can't stop what they don't know, ever. And so that is the biggest misconception about what goes on. And that really is what, to add in a little advertisement here, that's really what our company was founded upon, really. And these are Vic's ideas. It is, you have to have a piece of hardware involved in the security process to be able to control the situation. And you have to work it rather than filtering. You have to work on what is it actually going to do. So the is the biggest misconception in the industry that software is the answer, because the software people think software is the answer and the hardware people think software is the answer. And it really requires a complete mind shift to actually be proactive protection against cybersecurity.
I love it, David. Thank you for that response. I mean, if you're thinking about the ability to re-engineer the software these days, right, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but how do you then stay differentiated in a sea of noise, right? Everybody's saying a lot of the same things. Everybody can potentially do very similar things. How does Zecurity kind of stay on the cutting edge and differentiate themselves from the noise out there?
Well, Vic can take some of this, but we are actually different. That's how. Number one, we are really radically different in two ways. One, we just talked about, is we're hardware, not software. That's a combination of hardware, software, but it is hardware based. And that allows us, particularly hardware that can't be changed. So the hardware guys took their cue from the software guys and said, oh, I'm going to stick a piece of hardware in the field, but I want to be able to change it from my desk. That creates vulnerabilities. That's the wrong answer. So our hardware, you cannot change from an external source. And then instead of working on a filtration and identity basis for the malware, our technology works on a behavioral basis, meaning that every piece of code that comes into your system tells the machine, what am I going to do? And there are various computer commands: read, write, create, delete, insert. The way malware or ransomware enters your system is it executes what's known as a write command, attaches itself into your system, propagates, and does its nasty business. Well, effectively what our technology does, and we call it a zero write technology, is it can't write. So if malware can't write to your system, it can't get in. We don't care if we know about it. We don't care if we don't know about it. As long as it's trying to write, it just doesn't get in, which is just a completely radically different way of looking at the solution, because it is actually a proactive stopping of malware rather than what the cybersecurity industry does right now, which is monitor and mitigate. Vic, got anything to add to that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah. And Vic, I mean, look, to David's point, like the infrastructure is not quiet anymore. I mean, it's dynamic because it has to be. It's hybrid. It's mission critical. You're talking on-prem. Is it workloads or storage, team, or what exactly are the outcomes that you're looking to drive with the hardware there?
Well, we're stopping bad things from coming from the outside and changing your environment or changing your system. Why should you even operate in an environment where you're going to allow people from the outside to come in and change your system? Why are you doing that? Every company is doing that because that's the way the infrastructure has been built. And when you take that approach, you can expect to get hacked. You can expect to have your data scrambled where you can't use it. You can expect ransomware and malware. But our solution says craziness. Why would we ever let anyone come from the outside and change our system in any way? We read
Yeah.
about it every day. And so basically, the IT guys, both the hardware and the software guys, they set up these environments. They know that they have set up these environments that are penetrable. They know that things are going to happen. And that's why they pursue this avenue of what we call monitor and mitigate. They just want to monitor it. They're not trying to stop anything. They're just trying to catch it when it happens. And then
Yeah.
they're going to turn around and charge the customer to fix it back or to mitigate it. Why would you do such craziness? It's actually, it boggles my mind why IT people would even allow this to go on.
Yeah, yeah, and we talk a little bit about like these mistakes, these perspectives that companies are making when they're looking to scale their systems. So a little bit, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. They're underestimating kind of what's out there. I think there's been a message in the market of cloud and software resiliency, of the ability to basically scale quicker with a software environment. Any comments, Vic or David, on how basically your hardware solution is keeping up with potentially those lower TCO solutions? Because I think that's what has driven that software market. It's like, look, am I open to more risks? Yes. Can it help me grow more, right? And I think a lot of in the industry have bought into this concept. Any insights to that perspective?
Well, that's really the beauty of our technology. The ugly side of the software cybersecurity world is you got to pay for updates. You have to constantly update. You have to constantly patch because it's filtration, because it's dealing with identity. Our technology, and this is not a word that many people in the cybersecurity industry will use, never, and I repeat, never needs to be updated. It just works because it's working on a behavior basis. It's working based on what the code is trying to do rather than what the code is. And so it really becomes plug, play, and forget. Yeah, we could update it if there's a functionality addition, but here's the rub. Maybe back up just a second. Cybersecurity or cyber threats, it's not the teenager sitting in the basement mucking around for fun anymore. This is a business. It's either state operated or people are doing this for a livelihood. They check in at 9, they check out at 5, and they're building malwares. There's 560,000 new malwares created every single day, and they're getting more and more sophisticated. It isn't from 5 years ago. They have AI. They're using AI better than any of the companies are using AI. And the malwares are getting faster, they're getting different, they're getting more sophisticated, but every single one of those has to write into your system to be able to be effective. And the software will miss it, we won't. And therein lies the key difference to our technology and why we have created what we believe is an actual solution to the cybersecurity problem.
And David and Vic, I mean, how do you help executives understand that, right? Ultimately, when you're secure, you're enabling growth, right? You're not slowing it down. How do you kind of get that perspective in talking to some of these executives, and how is it received?
Well, that's the difficulty with the disruptive technology, right? Look, we're still a startup. Not everybody's going to pay attention to that. Part of the issue is, yes, a lot of times you can get the business person to understand, but then when they turn it over to the IT group says, well, it wasn't invented here. I didn't invent it. It's not what everybody else is doing. And I'm not going to get fired if I hire brand X, brand Y, without saying various brands here. I'm not going to get fired if I hire them and we get hacked, because they're known as key players in the industry. So trying to change people's way of thinking is really, really difficult. But that's true for whatever disruptive technology you're dealing with. So look, we're out there working to try and find the early adopters, because there are going to be people who understand it, and there are going to be people who are willing to take the risk on a new technology. That's how every new technology ends up getting a footing, is you get a handful of people who believe, willing to do it, willing to test it. We're offering the testing for some of our critical infrastructure clients, and they test it because we've had several penetration tests. We know it works. We can provide you all the paperwork that shows it works, but until they see it works, they don't believe it. And so let us prove that it works, and exactly what it does, and we'll find those handful of early adopters and build on that, just like every other disruptive industry ever had to build. We're not going to convince everybody all at once, but we'll get there. We will get there.
Yeah, yeah, I love it, David. And to both of you, I mean, how challenging is it to get somebody to try it, right? Because at the end of the day, once they see it, they believe it. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe what you learned to help with the process and getting an executive to change his perspective and to be a bit more open about maybe trying the solution despite what he might think or believe?
Yeah, Vic, do you want to start and I'll fill in?
Well, that's a big challenge for us because a lot of times executives have confidence in their IT staff. Okay, and they say, well, okay, this may be new, but I got to get my IT staff to approve this. And so then we start dealing with the IT staff. That's a challenge because the IT staff that are at different companies are at different levels. And I've been in IT making a living since 1979. Okay, I've forgotten most IT things I've learned, and I've been a software developer most of those years. But when you start to look at this new disruptive technology, if you've got some IT people that are, maybe they've been in it 5, 10 years, and I'll just step out on a ledge here. If you entered IT after 1990, you've never seen a secure environment in your life. Okay, 1990, when we went to client-server computing, that's when we started building this internet and this Swiss cheese network that we're working in now. And so you've never seen a secure environment if you've entered after that time. So it takes people with understanding to know that we're dealing with two components here, software and hardware. When I entered in 1979, we had software and hardware. Guess what? Today we have software and hardware. Now we call our software different things. We call our hardware different things. But basically it all talks machine language. It has to in order to function. Okay? So if you believe that software can solve cybersecurity, more power to you. Just go for it. But I can tell you it's not going to work for the reasons that David's already stated. So you have to introduce another component, and the other component, the only one you have, is hardware. The quick example I like to use is when you log into your bank for your personal account, you put in your username, password, and then what happens? They send you a code. Now, where do they send that code? They send it to your phone. Why do they send a code to your phone to enable your login? Would you care to answer that? Why do they send it to your phone?
Yeah, identification. I mean, ultimately, right? Two-factor
Right?
authenticating who you are. Yeah.
Well, they believe that you have your phone. Okay. They've introduced a piece of hardware into the individual accountability part of cybersecurity. Okay. That's a great example of introducing hardware into that accountability. So basically, you can see a little bit here and there where people are coming up and saying, well, we've got to do something additional to basically make sure this person's not masking their ID, make sure they are who they say they are. And I'm not for a second going to believe that somebody down the street has my phone and my username and password trying to log into my personal account, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not a crazy idea to introduce hardware into the cybersecurity solution. We
And
just
then I,
do it with
I,
servers.
I apologize, Vic. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. We just do it with servers, okay? We've introduced hardware into the equation when you're dealing with servers, when you're dealing with data, protecting systems, critical infrastructure systems. We're not doing anything magic here.
And then the other piece of your question I'd answer, Hani, is kind of where is it difficult, or how's it difficult to get people? I'd say for any startup, and I've been involved with a lot of startups, advising and otherwise, it's no one's time runs on your time. It is all about following up and following up and then following up some more and then following up some more. And by the way, following up even more. They've got their own things going on inside their business that are priorities, that their superiors or the board or whomever is saying, look, you need to be taking care of this. And so even though you might be turning their attention to something, hey, look, we can really help you and we can really make a difference, they got their own fires to deal with. And
Yeah.
we or any other startup is not going to be their priority. So it is about trying to figure out, how can I make this the easiest possible for them to test, understand, etc. Are they willing, because they have to put in at least a little bit of time to listen to us and understand, and then maybe be willing to do a test. Luckily, our test doesn't take very long. It's something that we can set up one of our units in a couple hours, and if you spend more than a couple days on the test, that's way too long. You figure it out pretty quickly. However, that is still time away from all the other things they've got to do. And so just trying to get people's attention, and that's why in many times you've got to start with the C-level execs, get them to understand the risk, the insurance issues, the overall situation, because that's what they're responsible for, and then get them to go down to their IT group or the people who are implementing and say, look, I know you have a lot of things going on. This is a priority for us. I'd like you to find time to do this. And that has been the most successful for us as far as a way to be able to get into teams, because the people who are doing the work every day, they got so much to do that trying to find time for us is difficult.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. It's tough to basically prioritize the time as a founder or as a practitioner in this modern day. And yeah, I see that. So David and Vic, if you're looking at that prioritization of time from your client's perspective, I guess so just some insight from you guys on how you actually try to focus on what matters, right? Building your business and engaging these customers. I mean, how do you do that, right? How do you basically block out the noise? It's tough. It's a tough world to operate in. So,
to quote Dory from Finding Nemo, just keep swimming.
yeah,
Every day, just keep swimming. One foot in front of the other. You got to chase people. You got to move after them. You got to try and talk to the right people. You have to be very patient with people. You try to fit into their schedule the best that you can. The good news is, again, it's not a big process for this. It is trying to help them understand that it takes maybe an hour or two to set our product up. Now they got to find the right place to set it up, which is probably the biggest issue. But once they do, it's an hour or two to set it up, and it's a couple days test, maybe. So it's helping them understand that even though it is very disruptive technology, as Vic, I'll build on something Vic said before, is we built this thinking about the end user. We didn't build it for us or for the IT world, right? We built it for the end user to be as user-friendly as possible. That's part of the no updates, very little maintenance, no dashboard that you got to watch every single day to try and figure out what's going on. You don't have to worry about, I'm going to get 15 more emails that are going to explain what's happening. No, you've got to decrease the clutter for the client, show them how simple it is, and hopefully they're willing to march along with you. But that's the best you can do.
Yeah, get it in their hands. Vic, anything you'd add to that?
You mentioned AI earlier a couple of times, and AI is the latest buzzword, but is AI hardware or is it software? It's software, right? Every bit of AI is software, which means it's logic, okay? Which means we've had logic in computers from day one. So it's a big, there's a lot of mystique around AI, and I'm not saying it can't be used for some good things, because I do think it does have some good applications when you're dealing with a lot of data and you want to process that. But very few people know even how to program AI, which is another rabbit I won't go chase. AI programming is totally different than just basic application programming. Okay, but even with AI, you still have to write it with an end in mind. Okay, so as David mentioned, the bad guys have AI. Well, they're using AI to come up with new kind of ways to penetrate your environment. Well, guess what? All of that programming gets rendered down to machine level language, which is where our cybersecurity works. They haven't changed any of those commands. You can't change the commands using AI. That's not how things work. So it's not changing protocols, it's not creating new protocols for communications because you have to work on both ends to do those sort of things. So AI is a big distraction right now, but there's probably more harm going to come from AI than more good here initially. But I suspect after a couple of years, we'll be on to the next fad and we'll be talking about something different. We won't be talking about AI.
Yeah. And Vic and David, I mean, we talk about getting the right solutions into people's hands, getting them to understand things in a different perspective. I mean, how, because education and awareness is a big part of it. What we're finding with CEOs is like you could have the best solution ever. Like, how are you getting the solution out there, right? In terms of awareness that this is even a possibility or a different approach to how you're doing it, right? Webinars, this podcast, white papers, anything you're doing or you're thinking about doing to basically, reach a larger audience rather than kind of going one by one. And maybe if you're continuing to keep swimming and swimming, you could access like a school of fish in that approach. So
Yeah, look, it's a bit of the oxymoron related to being a startup, right? Is you want to try and have a broad reach, but you have limited funds. And there's certain things you have to do, and then there's certain things you'd like to do. And until you can get to a certain level where you can then raise your next round and have enough money to be able to do some of that PR, look, we've been fortunate enough. Y'all reached out. We're doing this podcast. We've done some other podcasts. We post things to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is great. We have spoken at various events and go to a handful of trade shows and talk to people. But until we can really build that traction with certain clients that then allow us to have case studies and how many customers you have. Oh, I got 6, 7, 10, whatever. You're welcome to go talk to them, etc. It's a building process. And so, I guess some startups in certain industries get the benefit of, like some of the AI ones right now, get the benefit of a lot of money being thrown at them. That's not our case. We've raised a fair amount, but we had other things that we were doing. We're getting ready to raise some additional funds, but it starts its priority level. And it's trying to do the most with the least. That's the world of
yeah,
the startup, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
so it's all the things you mentioned, Hani, and trying to do everything you can and trying to get the word out. And hopefully, as you build, it builds upon itself. But you do the best you can.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Vic, anything from your side?
No, I think David pretty well covered that.
Awesome. No, I agree. It's a tough world out there, and trying to basically, as you mentioned, take a step back and think about where your business wants to line up. I think is how you put it is really important to put kind of what's important into perspectives. With that, moving into the new year, what are some bigger goals that you all are looking to accomplish with Zecurity or just generally overall?
Other than taking over the world, right?
Of course.
Yeah, like everybody, look, building the startup. It's fun. Is sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? It is. Look, we have 4 patents on our technology. We know our technology works. We've done 4 different penetration tests with third parties. We've done all the, let's call it, blocking and tackling that we need to do to be able to show people what it is able to do. It is now translating that into customers. And we are actively talking with a good number of potential customers, trying to find those early adopters that then we can build case studies on, build the PR, et cetera, et cetera. And look, there's no magic, right? As
Yeah.
Vic said also, I mean, it is literally step by step by step. You can't skip steps. The world doesn't work that way, right? Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
great if we could talk to somebody and they say, yeah, I want 1,000 of these. Let's go. We're going to put it everywhere. It just doesn't happen that way. So it is doing what we need to do, communicating what we need to do, raising additional funds to be able to help us expand. We've got other products coming down the road that are built off of our technology that will also be rather disruptive and be incredibly helpful. Again, it's money. So you got to build with those customers, raise some more funds for 20 are very positive about where we're going. We believe we've done all the right blocking and tackling up till this stage. And now we're getting into that hockey stick where we're starting to get some traction and move up the line. And then once you have a bunch of people, it builds on itself.
Yep, I love it. And with that hockey stick, and Vic, you said start with the end in mind. What is an ideal scenario? I mean, more is always better, but 5, 6, 100 customers. Are you looking to basically scale to a certain number, or is it really about kind of proving out the outcomes in a select few and taking those references outside? What's your perspective on that?
Well, the perspective is once we can secure people and build on those initial customers, we're going to go right back into some of the new products that we have patents for, because what we've built is, I call it, for lack of a better term, a 5-pound bag of sugar. So we can use that 5-pound bag of sugar in multiple products doing different specific things. And so once we have some initial success, we'll be building out those other products and expanding our product line and then growing from there. So
yeah, we don't have any particular number of customers or specific revenue in mind. Look, we've got a plan, and plans are gone the next day, right? But we have a general plan as to where we'd like to go. But realistically, looking at sort of the end game, we'll get enough traction, and this is how life works in the IT world. One of the bigger fish will see us, and we'll sell to one of the bigger fish. And our products, we believe, can open up an entire new world of products for some of these larger fish. Yes, they may do some R&D, but the real innovation comes from smaller companies, and then they acquire them. And that's realistically the life cycle for us.
Awesome. Very well said, David and Vic. Thank you so much. This was incredible. Your insights definitely connect perfectly to the Vault Agentics mission, intelligence for modern growth, right? Cutting edge, bleeding edge, disrupting the market, giving different perspectives here. For listeners, we'll drop both profiles in the show notes. So if you're building, scaling, re-architecting your GTM or tech ops, please reach out. We're always happy to help. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of Vault Agentics. Thank you.
Thanks, Hani.
Thank you.